Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm James.
And welcome to the Cornwall Property Podcast, where every week we bring you the latest news, hot topics and guidance around the Cornwall property market.
Stay tuned to be informed, inspired and to have any of your property related questions answered by trusted local property professionals.
Welcome back.
Here we are.
Episode 31 of the Cornwall Property Podcast, and thank you for joining us. I'm Dan.
I'm James.
And our mission, our aim here today is to inform, educate, inspire you guys to get involved with property with a particular emphasis on the Cornwall property market. So James and I, we invest in Cornwall. We are trying to there's a big issue with the housing crisis that we are all very, very well aware about. And our aim is to hopefully educate you guys to get involved with property, make a little bit of money for yourselves, but at the same time, at the head of all of it is to try and bring accommodation back for local people in Cornwall.
Absolutely, and working all together we can help solve this problem, which is what this podcast is all about, as well as educating you guys. So thank you as well for all your lovely feedback and supporting the podcast. Just how you get involved with us, you can reach us on cornwallpropertypodcast.com on our website. You can scroll down to the bottom there and let us know any feedback you want or ask any questions. You can also send us an email on hello@cornwallpropertypodcast.com, or as many of you do, get involved with us on our social media platforms such as Facebook, as we love hearing from you.
Excellent stuff, exactly that. So thanks for getting in touch again. So this episode is our market update episode. So our aim is that James and I have picked up a few, there's actually quite a bit of topical news out there at the minute, property related news that we just want to share with you guys. Keep your finger on the pulse so you don't necessarily have to go search for it yourselves. You can just listen or watch in the luxury and just be fed the news from ourselves. But again, we're just the headline figures. We're just going to share with you the details that kind of catch our eyes and think that is important for you guys to know about if you're getting involved with property or if you're already involved with property. And then we also have our picks of the week, where Dan, will share some commercial properties that are currently derelict, or a commercial property that's currently derelict on the market that might be a great opportunity for investing in and an opportunity to bring some housing to the market. And James here will have a residential.
I certainly will do, so to give you some flavours on that as well. And we love bringing these properties to you because they are certainly hot picks for unencumbered or derelict buildings and just properties that aren't being used for anything. But guess what? You can help solve that problem by bringing them back to life and, most importantly, bringing it back to the Cornish market.
Whilst making a little bit of cash, hopefully.
Absolutely. Win-win for everybody.
Exactly that. So let me get kicked off. I have got a news article that is, well, the article is actually from This Is Money. And again, if you're watching or listening to this podcast, however you're doing it, if you go on the show notes, you can access all of the links to each of the articles that we refer to and the properties that we talk about. So if you want to access the notes just to give a little bit more information, we'll just go into a little subheading and just give you the highlights, really. But again, if you want to read the articles in full depth, you can do that via the show notes. But the article, the headline that caught my eye and it just got a lot of meat on it that we want to try to pull apart and just tuck into, is that renters are to receive new rights to challenge landlords in the biggest shake-up in 30 years. So here's what it means for buy-to-let investors and tenants. So renters are set to receive new rights to challenge the rent hikes on substandard homes. So this is basically saying that renters, if they're not in a great property, substandard, it's not safe, there might be damp issues, etc., and all of a sudden they see a price hike because the landlords want to throw extra, they've now got rights, or they will be having rights where they can challenge this. So this is all going to be announced with the government later in the next week or two as well. So
wow, interesting.
These measures that are going to be noted in a minute, they're all part of the Renters Reform Bill. Now, if you've listened back a few episodes ago, we mentioned about the Queen's speech, which Prince Charles delivered in the end. But this was all mentioned, the Renters Reform Bill, it was all mentioned within that. So the government have labelled the proposals as the biggest shake-up in the private rental sector in 30 years. So this is marking like a generational shift now, that their aim is to address what they call the imbalance between landlords and the 4.4 million tenants that are living in the private rental sector. So they want to kind of just level the game. But yeah, interesting one, and we'll have plenty to unpick from this, James, as we go through it. But some of the proposals, again, primarily aimed at clamping down, which is good. And I know James will be on the same boat with me, on landlords that provide unfit homes. Mm-hmm. But the estimate is that there's about 880,000 unfit properties out there that currently let.
Frightening. Which
is scary. Obviously, all of different sort of standards and kind of categories of unfit, I suppose. Mm. But alarming, very, very alarming. I know it's horrible to even think about that. So anyway, these are the sorts of things that this renters reform bill are going to be looking at. So there is going to be a private renters ombudsman as well. So the idea is that an ombudsman is what is going to be used to settle disputes between landlords and tenants. Obviously, it's a tenant opening up a dispute with the landlord, but there's got to be someone who's going to deal with this.
Regulation.
So, exactly. And with the COVID, there was such a backlog of evictions in courts and things like that. So the idea is to try and relieve a bit of the stress on the courts, but we're going to have an ombudsman, an actual property, it's called a private renters ombudsman, that's going to be kind of helping to just settle these sorts of disputes. So that's, again, an interesting way we look to see it. But in essence, Michael Gove, the housing secretary, and they call this obviously levelling up, don't they? This is the term that the government have been using, is the levelling up and housing secretary. And what he said is, for far too long, many private renters have been at the mercy of unscrupulous landlords who fail to repair homes and let families live in damp, unsafe, cold properties with the threat of unfair or no-fault eviction orders hanging over them. So the new deal for renters will help to end this injustice by improving the rights and conditions for millions of renters as they level up across the country and deliver on the people's priorities. So I, for one, have got a lot of questions, because I suppose you've got to have evidence. What are they kind of seeing as unsafe? Like, what is a minor unsafe bad? Like, if it's, what's the kind of duration you've got to repair something? It'd be interesting to know the ins and outs, but this will all be shared. But just the first one, in terms of what is exactly planned, be interested to hear your thoughts on this one, James. We haven't mentioned it before, but it's just the Section 21 banning. So for those that aren't familiar, Section 21 is basically like a no-faults eviction. So apparently more than a fifth of private renters in 2019 and 2020 did not end their tenancy by choice. So according to the government, 8% of these numbers were asked to leave by their landlord. So again, if you know that you've got 4.4 million private renters, 8% of those are apparently asked to leave their property by their landlord via a Section 21 notice. So what the government are saying now is that it's not fair for tenants that are, good paying tenants, and there's nothing wrong with it, that they're doing everything right by their contract. They should not be allowed to be given notice for no reason. So what are your thoughts on that one? What are your thoughts on how that is going to be potentially presented?
Yeah, it is an interesting one. I see it as there's good and bad points for this. I suppose for the tenant, it's good that, if they are behaving themselves, they're looking after the property, they're paying their rent on time, they've never had any missed payments, and they, want to stay living in their home. I mean, let's look at it in Cornwall. I know there are lots of other places around the UK where there aren't many homes that people can kind of jump to or upsize to, and in Cornwall it can be quite scary. Let's put a family in Cornwall. Their landlord has given them notice and they need to move out within the next 2 months. It's not so easy just to, I just go on to Rightmove, Zoopla, and I'll find another property and I can move in 2 months and put a deposit down. There isn't anything available. No. So from a family point of view, that can be quite scary, daunting. Actually, I need to move out by this date in 2 months and I don't know where I'm going to go. How does that work with, children, etc., etc.? So I think for the protection of that kind of is a good thing, especially here in Cornwall where there aren't many options to go on to another place. But then if we look on the landlord side of things, there are lots of reasons that landlords might be, giving eviction to their tenants. That could be they may need to sell that property because they need to pay for, I don't know, a wedding, a funeral, something like that. A bit morbid, but these are people that actually do sell their homes to raise money for. Weddings are expensive.
There's equity in the property. You need it back.
Absolutely. Or they may have another investment opportunity. Or let's have a look at what you were just talking about with houses in disrepair. Well, he or she wants to bring those properties up to standard, so he needs to sell one of his to raise capital to do those repairs or bring the EPC out. You know what I mean? It's quite difficult on both sides. But if a landlord is restricted from selling his own property, I don't know whether that's necessarily fair either.
And it comes back to a snowball. What's going to happen? It's just going to deter the private rental landlords, that they're not going to want to enter, because it then seems quite a risky business, because it's all well and good getting the tenants in there, but if you can't move a tenant on for legitimate reasons very easily, then it's kind of like, it's not easy having your money in property anyway, because it's not necessarily easy to access. It's not liquid, is it? So even if you wanted to sell your property, you've still got to wait a period of time to sell the property, get the money back in your bank account before you can actually use the money. But this just makes that a lot harder potentially. But I massively, like you, I see it on both sides. So the means that a landlord will soon have to just require, the only way they can evict a tenant is with a reason, a valid reason. So a valid reason would include if a tenant is in arrears, if the tenant is causing damage, or they're just generally being a nuisance to the neighbours. So they're the sort of reasons that you'd have to have, and obviously with that backed up with evidence and be able to prove it, because you'll have to go to the and go down the correct measures of evicting that tenant. But concerns with this abolishment is that it's going to massively discourage private rented landlords. Like, why would you want to enter the market if you're umming and ahhing? It's going to be a big deterrent, I feel.
I think it's also going to upset the agents. I mean, let's be honest. Let's say we've got somebody average living in the property for 12 months or 2 years, but let's say tenants now can't be evicted and they're going to be in there for 5 years. Well, that's huge scope for agents missing out on profitability where they're doing finder's fees, where they're managing properties. But, mainly for the finder's fees, they won't be putting lots of new tenants in over and over. That's where they make their money because the tenants will be stuck in there, albeit if they're being on a management basis with the rent, they're going to carry on making money. But for new finds, that's not so great. And also landlords that do need to bring properties up to standard, usually when a tenant leaves, they won't put the new one in there till they've got it redecorated. They put a new boiler in there. They've insulated more. That they're losing out on those opportunities to get rid of tenants so they can do upgrading. So I think it's real double-edged sword, really, isn't it?
I completely agree. Well, and there's so many points in this article, so it's well worth having a little read. But the last one I want to just bring up is about the renters. All renters are going to be moved to what's called a periodic tenancy. So let me just give you a little bit of a background on this. So the government white paper states that they were making all tenancies periodic, giving private tenants the right to move whenever they need to, or where the landlord is not fulfilling their basic responsibilities. So tenants will need to provide 2 months' notice, and when they want to leave the tenancy, and ensuring that landlords then can recoup the costs of finding a new tenant and avoid lengthy void periods. So periodic tenancy is essentially referred to as like a rolling tenancy with no fixed date. So generally we'd say, look, you're entering a 6-month fixed term contract, which generally then goes on to 1 month rolling thereafter. So you're committing to being in this property for 6 months. After the 6 month period, you then just go on to a periodic tenancy. But what we're saying is that every tenancy is now going to be periodic. So someone could come in, give 2 months notice and be straight out the door again. So again, I completely appreciate they're trying to give flexibility to tenants, but it seems like everything's against the landlord in this respect as well. It's a difficult one. Once more, there's so many negatives to this. I feel as landlords ourselves, sitting in our landlord's seat, I can see so many negatives and deterrents on this. Again, something that could potentially push away interested landlords from the market.
It's almost like it's against the podcast, isn't it? We're sat here now trying to help the housing crisis for Cornwall. Take these unencumbered properties, derelict buildings that need help to bring back for the Cornish folk. But by the way, it's going to be a real hassle for your tenants when they can just leave whenever you want. You'll be left with void periods and stuff. But in this podcast, we're not bending the truth or anything like that. We're just stating facts and watching the news. And it'd be great to hear the viewers' thoughts. Or what you guys think. How to get in contact with us and let us know your thoughts, because it's changing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the key is just doing everything right, doing it by the book, doing everything. We're fine. We know all this information. We're still property investors. We're not going to leave the market. Like it's not necessarily and why is that? Because I think that it's just so important to get the front end right. Get the right agent, get the right vetting system when you get the tenants in. Make sure you get the right tenants. Don't rush into this.
Agreed.
Once you've got the right tenant, because it's so easy to get a tenant in, it's blooming difficult to get the wrong tenant out, as we're showing you right now.
It's good advice.
So I think that it's so, they say like hire slow, fire fast. It is not that way in property. You need to make sure you take your time in finding the right tenants, and then once you've got them, look after the tenants. They're your customers. You can't give them a poor service. You can't give them a poor product. You've got to give them the service that we would expect from our own landlords if we had them. So yeah, there's pros and cons to all of it, but this one I don't see the benefit. Maybe, but yeah, I'm not so interested. I don't like this one so much personally. But hey, it is what it is. 2 months notice. Yeah, I suppose, but you're going to have extra costs in marketing again. agent fees, finder's fees. If you do it yourself, then great, but finder's fees, it's all going to be extra costs. So it's, again, not as attractive, I feel, for a landlord in this one. But I do also appreciate it's more attractive for a tenant. So
time will tell.
Time will tell. But anyway, that was all from the List is Money. There's a lot more to dissect from that article, but I'm not going to go through that now for you. The actual link to the article is on the show notes. So I'm now going to chuck it over to James. James, what have you got for us?
Right, well, there's been quite a few bits going on, but I think we've got to look in June. Surprise, surprise. My first headline is that rents have been raised from 1% to 1.25%, and they are now at their highest level for 13 years. We've been talking about it for quite a number of weeks now, and I certainly don't think this is going to be the last rise here. But the Bank of England hopes to slow the rate at which prices are increasing. It has warned that inflation could pass 11% later on in this year. We've seen it just going up and up and up. So breaking it down a bit, why are prices and interest rates rising in the first place? Prices are going up quickly, not just in the UK, but worldwide, as COVID restrictions ease and consumers spend more money. Of course, we've been hoarding our money whilst the pandemic has been going on, and now people are allowed out and they want to reward themselves because they feel like they've been hard done by in the pandemic, having to stay in and, we're here to live and have a nice life. They want to go off and spend their money on consumables, holidays, etc., etc. Many firms have problems getting enough goods to sell, and with more buyers chasing the few goods, prices have been risen. So it's pretty easy equation here. There is more demand than there is supply, and when people are all coming after the same products, the people selling them can just choose what they want. So they're just hiking the prices because, let's be honest, they're businesses. They're here to make money, and that's what they do. So if they can hike the prices, they can, and they will make big profits. I certainly know some of the stats for companies like Netflix, have done amazingly well, and Amazon Prime, where people are ordering because they haven't been able to spend outside. They've been getting stuff delivered, and people are watching a lot more TV in the pandemic. So it's crazy, and people are spending more money. There has also been a sharp rise in oil and gas costs, a problem made worse, obviously, by Russia's involvement with Ukraine, and cost of living is hugely going up from that side of things as well. And they're not really fun things to spend on like Netflix. This is like heating your house, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, warmth, heat, that type of stuff. So why are prices rising so quickly? One way to control rising prices or inflation, as we know, is the interest rate. So we're not expecting all of you guys to know about the economy, but some of you may do. So apologies if this is teaching you guys to suck eggs. But it's quite simple as this. The government has obviously been giving out lots of cheap money. You could be borrowing stuff, when the rates were at 0%, so you could borrow money less than 0.5%. So people are like, hey, let's borrow money and let's start spending it. We're never going to get this opportunity. So in a way, the government was encouraging people to take loans.
Making nothing in the bank, are they? So you might as well just spend it. That's what they're saying.
Absolutely. So this increases the cost of borrowing and encourages people to borrow and spend less. It also encourages people to save more. So that's the whole idea with it's not so cheap on the money front now. Although I think 1.25% is still pretty cheap, but I don't think it's going to be like that towards the end of the year here. And on the article that I had here, which was from BBC Business, they're saying or predicting that rates could go as high as 1.75% by the end of 2022 this year, where they think that's going to be the actual peak. And just some other stats here. Since the global financial crisis of 2008, UK interest rates have been at, as we know, historically at low levels. Last year, they were as low as 0.1%. So in just a year, we see the increase that's happened here. So I think it's a balancing act, because obviously the government don't want to sort of shrew the economy either. They want to keep people spending, but there has to be a cap on it, and they've got to stop people from taking the loans. And in the UK, we do have quite a big culture of, spending money that we don't have. We just borrow it to enjoy the now. But what's your thoughts on it, Dan?
No, I look at it like a tap, essentially. So spending.
So does my partner, actually.
So I say you look at it as a money tap, just as a visual, trying to understand what's happening here. And the minute out of this tap is pouring, we're leaking a lot of cash, a lot of spending going on from this tap. And every time the interest rate increases, there's a slight turn on the off side of this tap. So I think they're just trying to slow down how much money is leaking into the economy at the minute. They're just trying to slow down that spending, as you rightly said. And with the vision is that that slowing down, it brings then obviously the demand down slightly. Hopefully that bring the prices down a little bit more as well with the whole supply and demand side of things. But yeah, it's prices are going up. Everyone is feeling the pinch in terms of bills, fuel. It's crazy. We're down here in Cornwall now. We're paying, there's certain areas that we're paying over £2 a litre. It is mad, and it's just trying to find the end, isn't it? You can't see anything at the minute. Obviously, there's talks about potentially other price increases with further energy price increases later in the year. So again, as we drum into you, make sure you go through your numbers, look at your incomings, work out, go through if you've got a joint account. I do this probably quarterly. Personally, I go through our bills, our home, what are our outgoings, excuse me, what do we spend, how much do we spend, what do we need to spend that, and then I know exactly what is going out of our account every single month. Obviously, then I'll marry that up with what's coming into our account. Are we okay? If we're not okay, or if it's a bit tight, right, we need to now look at what could we take away. So again, I massively advise you to do that, because it's no harm in just having a better idea and an overview look on your finances, because it's just so important to know where you are and not to spend more than you earn if you can help it.
Absolutely, and as we all know, one of the biggest loans you'll ever take in your lives is your mortgage. And of course, the base rate that the Bank of England sets is massively geared towards what you can borrow your money at from your lenders. That's how they make their money on the bit in between. So if your mortgage is up for renewal in the next few months, even if it's 5 months, start doing your homework now, because you can be getting decisions in principle 3 months before your mortgage is due to expire. How gutted would you be if you did it a couple of weeks before, and you got your agreed in principle, and then the rates literally went up over those couple of days you were doing that. So now is the time. And I've not missed it, Meg, as I always say, but we've been harping on about this since the beginning of the year, and we've been saying, rates are going to be going up. We have to pay back this money and, put a cap on inflation. So get those mortgage deals in early.
Fix them what you
can. Fix them 5 years, honestly. I really
know what you're paying, and it's not going to change.
Yeah, make sure it fits your bill and what you want to do. But generally, if you want to save yourself some money, as Dan said, fix those rates in. That's really important. So second headline, which is, I think it's very, very much geared towards Cornwall, and it's something that we've talked about in previous podcasts, and it was inevitable it was going to come into play, and I'm really pleased. You know how I feel about this, Dan. Government launches review on short-term tourist accommodation. The UK has launched a review into the effect of short-term holiday lets to improve the holiday letting market for those living in popular tourism locations. The call for evidence aims to understand the impact of the increase in short-term holiday lets in England following the rise in the use of rental booking websites and apps. It will then go on to look at the market and the opportunities and challenges presented to consumers and tourism committees. This whole article can be seen on mortgagestrategy.co.uk, which is the links on here for you viewers, everybody to have a look at. But it's also going into a lot more depth about the effects on the local communities. Now, if I was to tell you about how it's affected Cornwall's locals, I wouldn't be the first person to mention it. We all know so many people are now doing Airbnb, they're buying second homes to holiday let, etc., and it's just pushing locals out, which is not a good thing, and it's just making it just not affordable, because a bit like we talked about with the inflation and everything, it's demand and supply. There's less houses available for more people coming in to want to buy, so it's just hiking the prices off. But we are seeing a bit of a levelling field now. I've been scouting Rightmove a lot with Dan recently, as we're property developers always looking for deals, but I'm seeing a lot of properties that were clearly put on way too high, but people are catching on that they were too high, and there's a lot of reduced signs that I'm seeing. So definitely we can see evidence that the market is showing. But this article goes on to say that the government reveals it is also considering registration, thank the Lord, a kite mark scheme which spot checks for compliance with rules on issues such as gas safety, a self-certification scheme for hosts to register with before they can operate, and better information or a single source of guidance setting out the legal requirements for providers. Well, this is music to my ears, because there are so many people that jumped on to the bandwagon during the pandemic, where they could think, when we are all allowed to go holidaying once again. People will be too scared to go abroad, so the staycation is going to be massive, which it was last year in 2021. It's seen record numbers of holiday lets. Airbnbs pop up all over the place, but we've always said that there needs to be some form of regulation, because you have Joe Blogs that thinks, do you know what, I'm just going to move out of my house for July and August and we can rent that out at £1,000 a month. When did they last get their boiler serviced? Well, it's only for them in the house. They've got no commercial responsibility. Oh, do you know what? That's actually serviced 4 years ago. Your tenants go in and you've got carbon monoxide, that's leaking, or you haven't got the right fire extinguishers. People aren't geared up for that. They just saw the money. They saw everybody else that was doing it. And it makes these properties actually quite unsafe because it's putting the people who's renting them at risk. So I think that by having this kite mark, which is what the industry needs for sure, it will sort of be a deterrent and people won't be doing their Airbnbs anymore, and it will reduce the numbers. And I did also see an article by The Guardian which stated that there were over 11,000 holiday lets in Cornwall in April 2022. So quite a recent survey that was done. That's a lot of them, and they're anticipating that these numbers will reduce if this gets regularised in the future. And I know by getting messages and seeing different articles with Airbnb that they are now looking at regulating it themselves before the government does that, because they're just trying to set a standard before the government puts in a majorly big standard. So it's coming, whether people like it or not. And I think that's going to be really good for Cornwall, because there'll be less holiday lets and more availability for locals.
Sure.
What's your thoughts on that, Dan?
Well, 11,000 is a big number, isn't it? 11,000 properties. When you put that in respect to there being over 22,000 on the waiting list for emergency housing in Cornwall. So already you can see the big differences there and where these numbers could help.
By 50%.
Yeah, by 50%. Yeah. But obviously, never are you going to have all holiday lets stopped. So even if you had, 10% of those holiday lets that they didn't want to comply, they weren't compliant, therefore they can't be used, or landlords just didn't want to do it anymore because it becomes too difficult, it's not an easy buck anymore, then that is going to make a little difference. So get every little difference. Hence, one person here buys a property that's derelict and brings it back to the market. That is making a difference.
Absolutely.
And that is what our aim is, and our goal is to try and make a little difference just to help this Cornwall housing market. James and I, we've got our own development, and our aim is to always take on a commercial property, bring it to residential, make housing. Is to take an old, unused, unsafe property, bring it back to the market to make it available for local people. And we just want to keep banging that drum as loud as we can, because the more people we can get to do the same thing will just massively help this housing market. This
Absolutely.
Housing crisis,
and just for the the record, with these holiday lets being down here in Cornwall, I'm certainly not saying that holiday lets are a bad thing. They're actually an integral part of Cornwall's revenue that it makes every single year, because up there with agriculture, the tourism industry is massive. So we do need tourists, of course we do, and it's a very beautiful county. That's why people come here, not always just for the weather when it's nice, but people come down here to see all the wonderful things that Cornwall has to offer. But they also need somewhere to stay as well. But it's not just holiday lets that is messing up the housing market down here, where people are doing Airbnbs. It's also, after the pandemic, people realise they can work from home. They are wanting to just reside in Cornwall, and they're pushing house prices up as well. But I definitely think there will be more availability now. If I was to do my Mystic Meg on that, I think the 11,000 will drop by this time next year, but we can review that next year.
For sure, definitely.
So there we go.
Right, so conscious of time, so we're going to move on to our property picks of the week. So I am going to start us off with my commercial pick that is currently live on the market here in Cornwall. That is an opportunity that we could bring some housing to the market. So if you are watching on YouTube, then fantastic, you can see this in real time. We'll take you through the property and the link in the advert. If you're listening on your audio system, then please check the show notes. There's a link in there to the adverts, and if the property is still live at the point of you listening to this, then you can access it and have a look at yourselves. But in short, I'll give you a try and give you a little bit of description. So we've got basically it's a derelict building and a plot of land all within one here in Wadebridge. So guide price is 270,000. In short, you've got a plot of about 0.26 acres, and it is currently on with Cole, Raymond and White in Wadebridge. So it's subject to a reserve price, so it is going to be going, and it is being sold by Modern Auction. So there are certain terms that you need to just look into and do your homework on. But essentially, there's electricity, water, gas that is at the property but it's been disconnected. The electricity has a temporary box which has been relocated. So there are services locally to the site. So it's a good. What is it? It's essentially a good development opportunity there. So if you're looking at the images, you can see it's just a really rundown old bungalow, essentially. So just looking at the image, you can see it is grotty. It is very old, very dated, and it is advised that it needs to be a cash purchase. So just a little bit of information. It's believed that this is built with non-traditional construction. So again, definitely need to get your surveys done. It's very likely you're going to need to buy this cash. As I say, the guide price, 270,000. There is a reserve in here. Definitely worth a little viewing and taking a look, but there could be a nice juicy profit here perhaps for someone who's willing to take on a little development. James, what are your thoughts?
Nice plot, good location. Weybridge has always been very strong in Cornwall for capital growth, but yeah, I definitely think it's one of those, it's a knockdown and start again job, so probably not for a beginner developer. Not saying you can't take it on, but yeah, if you had the right build team, construction company, and I think you could, you got the size, you could create a lovely home with parking and with a lovely garden in a great location. So again, could be a wonderful family home for somebody. And I think that would be, yeah, it's definitely money to be made there for sure. Some
lovely views as well. If you look at the photos, I'm on photo 18 of 18. It's a lovely location. There's a driveway. It's got everything. It could be a lovely plot actually. So again, of interest, that cash purchase only. It's on with Cole, Raymond and White in Weybridge, and yeah, give them a little shout and have a little bit of a nosy if you get the chance and you're interested.
Absolutely.
James, what have you got for us?
I have got an auction property on Victoria Road in Camelford. It's currently going onto the auction list with Kivils, and it's a 2-bedroom bathroom at first floor with generous reception room and gallery style kitchen at the ground floor. Lovely little cottage actually. It's definitely in need, as for the viewers here can see on the pictures, it needs a full renovation for sure, but with a guide price of £50,000 I don't think that's too bad, is it? But as we all know, and we've said many times before, normally with the auctions you get the hook price, the worm on the hook as I call it. It's probably going to go for quite a bit more than that, but there's definitely value to be added here, and it's empty. It's been empty for a year, so again, this is prime type of property that we like to push here on the Cornwall Property Podcast, and it can have some great potential there. It has got great potential for sure, and the auction is going on the 27th of July on here at Strawberry Fields, Lifton in Devon. So I think that would definitely be interesting to see what that one goes for. But I think you really do need to do your homework on this one before, because obviously it's in quite a state of repair. I think the roof would need to be looked at by looking at the pictures on here, and definitely windows, things like that. But that's probably reflective of the price that it's going on. But what do you think, Dan? Great opportunity.
I think so too. And again, just something to bear in mind is generally the reserves or the guide prices, they need to be within 10% of what the reserve is. So they are, yeah, they're obviously trying to hook you in, but that is going to be potentially sold cheap. But as always, it could get into a little bidding war with the market that it's currently in. But no, I think it's a good opportunity. It's a funky size. I'm just looking at the floor plan as always. As we first thing you always do is a floor plan. Is there any way we can add some value, additional value? Unless you add an extension, I can't see how you could reconfigure this any other way, really.
It is what it is,
It is what it is. It really is. So I think, the best thing you can do is, if there is scope, it looks like you've got a nice garden area, driveway area on the back, potentially.
Ticks every box.
Why couldn't you do something, a little addition on the back, potentially? But no, nice find. Like it.
Thank you.
Good work. But yeah, that's all with Kibbles. So guys, that is it for today's podcast. Thank you ever so much for staying with us and listening, watching, wherever you are in the county or the world. And please do get in touch with any questions. But again, James, how's the best way of doing that?
I would say go on our socials on Facebook, Cornwall Property Podcast. Send us any information you want to on there or questions. You can reach us on email, hello@cornwallpropertypodcast.com. Then, of course, you've also got the website, cornwallpropertypodcast.com, where you can have a look in there and send us a message. And just keep supporting us like all of you do. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Guys, look forward to catching you next week. And that's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Bye-bye.